Hello everyone, this is Morgan here, and I'm going to show you how to make this specific game here on Scratch. So first off, I'll just demonstrate what the game actually does, then I'll get rid of all the code and show you step by step how to do it, because for the most part this game isn't just like you have to use all of these things and this is the only thing you can do with this game. This game is basically made up of just a bunch of different separate things that you can use in a variety of other games, so you're probably going to learn how to do a lot of different things just in what this game can do. So first of all, we'll start the game here. You can see from the code, if you get some of the code, what it actually does, but the idea here is that the main thing that it does is that it draws. So we're going to move the kind of Scratch Cat guy around to actually draw on the screen, and we do that by pressing the code here, which is by pressing D. So when we press D, this kind of activates the code in here, and you can see we have stuff that when the up, down, left and right arrows go, we draw. So which is what happens here, and you can see that we start drawing and we have control over up, down, left and right, and it's pretty smooth. And then the other code that's in this is that when we stop the game and start it again, we also clear away what we've drawn and reset the cat back to the start. So that's, I suppose, the main thing that it does. The other thing that we did was that we added in a thing where we can change the color. The color constantly change. It basically activates a kind of multicolored pen mode. So all we have to do there is to start drawing, and then we activate the multicolor by pressing A. And what that does, it does two things. It makes the cat flash to demonstrate that you have this thing active, and then as you can see here, the line also begins to start to change color every so often. And again, I'll explain the coding behind this in a second. This is just demonstrating everything that the game can do. And all of these things work at basically the same time. So it's changing color, we can still draw. And then everything else that the game does is sort of like adding on to that. So when we press the key S to spin, you can see what it does there is it flips him forward a full circle and flips him backwards a full circle. So it's a pretty interesting game overall. And yeah, the other thing that we do here is when we press W, it activates this whirl effect, which you can see here, which basically starts distorting the cat. If we just do it on its own, that's what it does without the spinning. But when you add the spinning in, it actually creates a fairly cool effect. What else do we have in the game? Oh yeah, the last thing that the game does is that you can increase and decrease the size of the pen. You can see up here I have the variable pen size. This is how you kind of keep track of how much it is. And I have this set to, I believe, number 1 increases it by 1 and number 0 decreases it by 1. So if we start that and we start drawing, you can see here, and if we press 1, you see it gets thicker. If we press 1, it gets thicker again, and if we press it a bunch of times, it gets very, very thick, to the point where you can go pretty crazy and make a really thick line, and then again 0 drops it down. You can see the number goes down, and yeah, so that's everything that the game does. So it seems like there's a lot of code here, because you can see it all there, sort of. I'll obviously show it up closer when I get to showing how you do it. But a lot of it is just like the same thing repeated over again. You're not using tons of different coding for most of this. It's actually fairly simple to do when you get down to it. So let me just do a quick cut here, and I'll come back with the page clear and explain to you how to do this, I suppose, step by step. Okay, so I've cleared away all the code now, and I'm going to show you how to make this step by step. There was a lot going on in the finished game that I just showed you, but when you do it step by step, you realize that you're just doing kind of individual things that aren't too difficult to do, and you're just doing multiple different things, but I'll show you how to do it. So we're going to start off with how to make the cat move, and then we'll add on to that the ability to put the pen up, and then also the pen down, and then we'll move on to the other kind of special effect things that we had going on. So to make something move, I'll quickly switch the backdrop to one I created to show this a bit better. This one, and then we'll go back to coding on the sprite. You don't need to make a background like this. This is just to explain how we're going to be doing the movement, and also how positioning stuff in Scratch works. So we'll quickly bring in some pieces of code, and then I'll get into what this kind of background that I have here is about. So the event that we're going to use to start off the drawing and movement is going to be when a key is pressed, and specifically we're going to be using the D key here for draw. And then everything's going to be in a forever statement, so we'll bring that in right there. And then everything that the key D does is going to be within the forever. So we're going to be using 4 of these if something then statements. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to use this one. If a key is pressed, then something happens, which is the movement. So this is going to be 4 of them for up, down, left, and right. And in that case, it's probably the easiest thing to do is to just bring in all 4 of these at the same time. So it doesn't matter what order you put them in, really. But I tend to do it like up, down, then left and right, or right, left. But you can do it whatever way you want. And the idea is we're just setting up the base of the code here, which is that we're going to have 4 things where the key is pressed. Up, this one's going to be down, this one's going to be left, and this one is going to be right. Now all we need to do is put within all of these if statements the actual code to do the movement, which is in motion. And this is where I'll bring in the diagram here. So you can see that to move up and down, you're going to be using Y, and then to move left and right, you're going to be using X. Specifically, and the way it works is that the middle point on the screen is considered the point 0, 0. When you go all the way over here, this is like 240 to the right, minus 240 is all the way over to the left, and then up and down is positive 180 to minus 180. But for movement, that doesn't matter too much. The idea is that to go up, you're going to be using plus Y values. To go down, you're going to be using negative numbers in the Y value. And then to go right, you're going to be going plus X, and to go left, you're going to be using minus X. So we'll start off with how to go up, which is that we're going to change Y by, because we're going up, and it's going to be a positive number because we want to go up. That positive values always go up. To go down, we're going to use the same code, but we're going to change the value. So this is change Y by 10. Instead, it's going to be minus 10. And that's going to be how we go down. Then to go left, we want minus X. So we're going to do change X by 10, but we want it to be minus 10. And then right, we want X as well, but we want positive 10, which is exactly what we have there. And that's how you make something move. So I'll just get this backdrop away, and then we'll go back to the code here. And yeah, we'll test this out. This is the best way to make a game, is to, when you make something, test to see does that thing work before going on to the next thing. Okay, so we'll start the game, and then we'll press D. So this should activate up, down, left, and right. So if we go up, it works. If we go down, we also go down. Right, yes, left. And then they all work kind of together if you start kind of messing around with up, down, left, and right. So that's really good. But now what we want to do is that we always want to make it so that when the game starts, the cat always starts from the middle of the stage. So to do that, we're going to add in this one. When the flag is clicked, when the game starts, we want him to go to the point 0, 0, like I showed you earlier on. So we'll bring in go to from motion, and it's just going to be x0, y0. And what that does is, if we just practice by putting him in the corner, and when we press the flag, he goes back to the middle, and that'll be every time. So that means we've added motion to get him away from the middle point, and this gets it back to where we start the game. He'll always go back to that point. Now, how do we add the drawing into this? This is where we're going to be using the green section here, pen. We're going to be using some of these values. So what we're going to do is we're also going to add something else to D, but it's easiest to do this by just adding in another when D is pressed. So it's the same as this one, and it means that they're just going to activate at the same time. And all we're going to do here is that we're going to say when D is pressed, pen down. And what that does, it means that when you press D, it activates the ability to move, but it also puts the pen down on the page at the same time. Now, we also want the pen to go up at some point, so we're not always drawing. And so this is where we add in another key. So we're going to add in when something is pressed. And in this case, I just use U for up. And this is very simple. All you do is you do pen up. When U is pressed, we do pen up. That's the simple part of it. So that should, just from that, activate kind of what we want to do. So if we practice with this, we press D, the movement works, but you can see we can draw as well. Every direction we go, we're drawing, because we've obviously put movement on it, and we've said that the sprite, when the D is pressed, we put the pen down. And then if we press U, you can see we can move around without drawing, and then if we press D again, we can continue to draw. But now, when we start the game again, this drawing is going to stay on the page. So we want to do more with, when the game starts, resetting the game back to default. So that's where you're going to use this clear thing here in pen. And what clear does, it basically gets rid of everything that you did with the pen. And all it is adding that onto when the flag is clicked. And so we're going to be, that's what mainly the flag is clicked is going to be doing. We're just going to be adding stuff that puts everything back to normal here. So you're going to see that a lot with what we do. Like when it comes to the spinning, we're going to make sure that he's always pointing in the right direction at the start of the game. But we'll get to that when we get to it. So that's that. Then what we want to do is we want to add that effect that allowed the pen to change color, and also allowed the sprite to kind of flash back and forth. And we said that we're going to use the key A for that. So we're going to bring in the event when a key is pressed, and we're going to use A, and we're actually going to use two of these. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to make the pen color change. So obviously we're going to be at some point using the change, where's it gone? Here, change pen color by is something that we're going to be using. And we're also going to be using a forever, because we want this to just be basically this kind of crazy multicolor thing that goes back and forth. Now there's a bunch of different ways to do this. You could do just repeat, but forever works, and specifically the way I do it works so that you actually, the color doesn't change too much, too fast. You actually get to see the colors changing. So what we're going to do is we're going to change color by 10, and then we're going to put in a wait a certain amount of time. Now it's up to you to choose how much you want this to be, because what this basically determines is how much distance passes before the color changes. So if you wait a full second, it's going to be like blue for a while, and then it will gradually change to like purple and then red. I think the way it works. We're going to start off with 0.5, 0.5, which is obviously half of a second. And if we look at if we practice this to see what it does, so we press D to put the pen down to get this working. So we're on blue at the start. So then when we press A, it should start changing the pen color. So we press A and then start moving again. You can see it is changing. And you can see that it draws about that much. You can see the orange here, it goes from about here to here. So half a second means that when you go up, when you hold down up for half a second, it draws something that much. And if we bring the wait time down, it'll shorten the distance for each color. So if we do 0.3, 0.3, and we start the game again, press D to move around, and then press A to start us going again, you can see the color changes a little bit more regularly here. It doesn't draw in the same color for as long. I think that actually works quite well here to draw for just 0.3 of a second. And then obviously the pen color value, that determines how much the color will actually change by. So if you put that to 50, you'd only see a couple of colors as you go through it, whereas if you make it a lower value, you'll see like it'll stay on different shades of blue for a long time before changing into purple. So I think 10 and 0.3 works quite well to see the colors pretty well. Then next we're going to make the ability for the cat to sort of flash different colors to kind of demonstrate that we've activated the multicolor function. So we're also going to have this on A. So when A is pressed, and what we're going to do with this is we're going to do, again, it's going to be in a forever loop because we want this to be a continuous thing that keeps going. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into looks specifically here and go into change color effect by 25. And we'll use this later on. You can see there's a drop down menu here. There's a bunch of different effects that we can use, and this is how we do the whirl effect as well. So we're going to bring that in specifically. So I'll just get the D out of the way for the second here while we focus on A. So what we're going to do is we're just going to have this basically happen over and over again, and specifically the way we do that is that we do this. We're going to make it repeat 10, change color by 25. Then we're going to put in another repeat 10 and another one. We're going to have 4 of these. And the idea is that we want to make a pattern that repeats itself over and over again. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to change the color effect by plus 25. Then we're going to go minus 25, minus 25 again, and then plus 25 again. And the result of this is it's this kind of gradual shift of like, it goes up by a certain amount, then down twice by a certain amount, then up again, and it just creates this nice kind of pattern over and over again. And you'll see that a little bit better when we do the whirl, but the color is what we want to do at the moment. So we'll go back to looks, and we're also going to be bringing in the change color effect again. So more of that, and we're going to put it in here, and then we just have to change the values. So we want minus 25 here, another minus 25 here, and then plus 25 here. That's the way you want it to look. 25, minus 25, minus 25, 25. Now let's see, does this work? So if we just go in and press A, you can see he begins to start flashing. And again, this also activates the pen. So if we press D to put the pen down, we can see that the color change is also working on the pen. So everything's working so far, and it hasn't been overly complicated. So that's that. So we have our directions to move, we have our color effect here, pen up, pen down, and also our flashing to change the pen color. So the last thing we're going to do with the pen is we're going to add in the ability to change the size of the pen, how thick the actual pen kind of lines that we're making actually is. And there's an option in here, as you can see here, change pen size by, and there's also a set pen size to. And we're going to use these, but we're going to use them in a slightly different way. We're not just going to set the values ourselves, we're going to use a variable here. So first of all, we'll set up the controls for this. So it's up to you. Again, you can choose whatever keys that you want for this. I'm going to use 0, the number 0, and also the number 1. So let me choose 1 here. And the idea is that when we press 1, we're going to increase the size of the pen, the thickness of the pen by 1, and when we press 0, it's going to bring it down again. So that's what we're going to be doing. And all we have to do in this case here is make the value. So we're going to go into data and click make a variable, and we're just going to call it pen size. And we're going to say OK. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say when you press 1, you just bring this one in here, change pen size by 1, and we're going to do the same thing with 0, except we're going to change the value to -1. Then what we need to do is we actually need to use the variable, and we also need to set it at the start of the game. So this is where we bring in our when the flag is clicked thing, and what we're going to do is we're going to set the pen size to 1 at the very start. So this way it always has a certain thickness the second you start using it, because you don't want it to be set to 0 and do nothing at the start. So that's something you add in to the when the flag is clicked bit of code. Then we just need to add something in to this. So here, when D is pressed, obviously it activates the movement, but we've also added in a bit of code to make it say pen down. So on this piece of code, the pen down one, we're going to add a little bit more into it. So let me just position these correctly. And all we're going to do here is we're going to add in a forever. And then we're just going to say set pen size 2. But instead of 1 or typing in a value, we're just going to drag this in, pen size, using that variable that we made here. And what this does is it basically just means that the pen size is always going to be kept track of, and you can see it on screen. And you're going to be using 0 and 1 to change this value. And it's just a kind of a better way to keep track of things and use it in different pieces of code, in that if you needed to use pen size somewhere else, you can use it, and it's not just a number in something. So let's see, does this actually work? So when we click start, it sets the pen size to 1, like we set it to at the very start. And then let's see, does it actually work? So we press D to put the pen down. So it's working, but you can see it's pretty thin here at the moment. So if we press 1, you can see it gets a little bit thicker, and you can see the number also goes up over here. It's not 9 right now, so you can see it's fairly thick. Does 0 work? So when we press 0, it goes down, so it's now at 5. So you can see that works now as well. And then we can also activate A to start the flashing and the color changing, and you can see it's beginning to work already. You can make it thicker, and so on. So that's good. Everything's working well so far. And yeah, so let me just organize this code a bit, and we'll move on to what we're doing next. So I think the last two things that we have to do are to make the character spin around in the circle, and also the whirl effect. So to make it spin around in a circle, again, we're going to put that on a specific key. In this case, we're going to use the key S for spin. And what we're going to do here is, let me just make this big. Yeah, we're just going to use code to make it spin around. And to make something spin kind of slowly and consistently, again, we're going to use forever because we want it to work from as long as we press the button. And then we're just going to add in a repeat. And we're going to add in the motion of turning, which is these two. So this one is clockwise, and then the bottom one is anti-clockwise. So we'll do clockwise first, and we'll put it inside the repeat. And the numbers here are fairly important. If you want him to do a full turn, you have to make sure that these two numbers multiply together to give 360, which is a full circle. So the easiest way to do that is to say we want 36 repetitions of 10, because 10 times 36 is 360. So if we actually practice that, we just press S, you can see he does a full flip, and he keeps going around consistently. And then this is another thing that we want to go back to the when the flag is clicked moment, because if we stop this like now, he's upside down, and he sort of stays that way even if we start the game again. So we want him to always be pointing in the right direction at the start of the game. So this is where we have to add in this. Point in a direction 90, which is this sprite facing in the right direction is him pointing in 90 degrees. And if we can see, we've now added that into the flag here, and if we press the flag, he points in the right direction at the start, but still allows us to press S to spin. But it means that if we stop him at the wrong point, he'll always be reset back to this. But anyway, we'll go back to spin because we want to add a little bit more to this effect. And it's just the same thing, except we want him to spin forward once and then backwards once. So we're going to be using the exact same code. We're going to do repeat 36, and we're also going to add in motion, except we're going to use the opposite way, anti-clockwise this time. And we're going to also do 10. So what this is going to do is when you press S, he's going to spin forward once and then immediately spin backwards the other way to just create like a repetitive effect. So if we see that, forward, backwards, forwards, backwards. So that's how you do that. And you can obviously choose to use different values. If you only wanted them to spin like upside down, you could just make it repeat 18 on both of them, and he'll just kind of flip back and forth. But this is what we wanted to do here, so that's fine. And then the last thing that we have to do is add that whirl effect in. So we said that we'd use W for that. So we'll bring in when space is clicked, and we'll do W. And this is going to look very, very similar to the color change effect, because basically we're going to use more or less the exact same code from here. It's going to be a forever, it's going to be 4 repeats, and it's going to be 4 change something effect by, except we're going to use the whirl effect. But it's going to look the exact same, and we're going to use the same pattern of a plus number, a minus number, and then a plus number again to get the effect that we want. So that's exactly what we're going to do over here. So we'll start with the forever loop here. Then we're going to bring in the repeat. And then we're going to add in our effect, change effect by, but this time it's going to be the whirl effect. And the whirl effect here, this value I believe is degrees. It's how much the kind of sprite will actually like alter itself. So if we actually just get rid of, I suppose give a demonstration of this, if we just get rid of the loop for a while and just say that when we press W it changes it by 25, what actually happens, you can see here that it's just a tiny little thing. As we keep pressing it, it just moves the kind of tilts it by basically 25 degrees inwards, and it just keeps going. But that's what it looks like. But when we do this, when we put this in, actually like this, the effect that this has is it's just going to continuously do this and alter the image, but it's going to go on forever, and nothing is going to get the image back to the way it looks. So this is why we have to add in it whirling in the opposite direction to get it back to normal, which is what we do. And so I'll explain why we do it like this by showing you step by step. So we'll do the same thing again, change whirl effect by color effect, and we change it to whirl. And this time we'll do minus 25. So if we just keep it like this, we still have to add in 2 more, but if we just demonstrate what doing it by 25 and then doing it by minus 25 does, we'll see the effect that we're getting. So we press W. You see all it does is it tilts at 25 in one direction and then back. So it returns the image to the way it used to look. But then we actually want it, when it goes back, to actually go past that, which is why we do the negative one again. So it kind of goes in the opposite direction and then tilts back again in the other direction. It makes the effect look kind of better when we do it this way. So we'll do repeat again and repeat again. Then we're just going to put 2 more of these change effects in, like so, and we're going to make them whirl effects. And then this third one here will be minus 25, and then the bottom one remains positive 25. And then we'll see how this looks. So when we press W, you can see there it kind of alters one way and then turns back on itself and then alters the other way, but it always kind of roughly shows you what the shape looks like. And personally, I don't think that effect is enough, so I think the best way to do it is to actually change the repeat to 20 on all of them. It just makes it kind of alter a little bit more, so it looks better. And this should more or less be the end of it at this point. So if we do that again, press W, you can see it alters a bit more. You can really see the whirl effect actually taking place as it kind of goes back and forth in each direction. And again, we've done all this other code as well, so all this still works if we look at what we have here. So if we press S, we can see that he spins at the same time as the whirl effect is taking place. If we press A, he starts to flash while those other 2 effects are still taking place. And then if we press D, the pen goes down and you can see that's working. And you can see it's still changing color as well. And then we still have our 1 and our ability to change the size. And then 0 alters the size back down. So everything's working quite well here. So that's more or less the game. And of course there are other things you can add by looking at the other bits of code that you had. You can choose another key to set the pen color to a specific color that you want at any point. You know, you can change the pen shade by a certain amount, and there's so much else you can do. Like, you don't have to do full 360-degree turns. You can choose to have it, you know, do whatever you want using different pieces of motion and so on. You could add gliding in and stuff like that. But yeah, that's the basic idea of what's going on here. I suppose the other thing I believe I did in one of the classes one day was that I kind of made it automatically draw on its own, and that's using the glide function, which is basically just, I'll do a really quick example. I won't do the full thing that I did in the class that time, but let's see, I'll just say when spacebar is pressed, I want the pen to go down, because obviously we want it to draw. And then what we want to do is, obviously it's going to, when we press space and the game starts, it's going to start from the point 0, 0, and I want it to go up into the this corner here, the top right corner. So to keep enough space for the sprite, we'll do it about here at like 120, x 180, y 129, which you can see it tells you where the cursor is down at the bottom. But and we'll do this. So we'll do glide 1 second. So we'll do glide 3 seconds to x 120, y 180, and we'll just see how that looks. So we'll just start the game and press space. So that wasn't quite the right position I needed, I don't think. But you can see the idea. You can choose to have it glide to a certain position if you want. So that's how you do that. I think I'll need this to be 120. But yeah, that looks more like it. And then what you can also do is you can add extra glide. So if we add another glide in, and we'd go 3 seconds, and we say we want it to go, okay, we want it to go straight down, so the x coordinate will remain the same, but we'll have it go down to minus 120. And what happens here is it's going to, you see from the start, it's going to go all the way up here, then it's going to go all the way down here while still drawing the color. So if we start the game and press space, you can see 3 seconds up to here, and then 3 seconds down to the bottom. And that's how basically I made kind of this automatic thing in the game. You can choose to make it draw any shape that you want if you plan it out well enough. But yeah, that's how you make this game and how you do all these different effects. This is the coding for how you make something turn like that continuously. This is the code for how you make something kind of flash color back and forth. Here's the code to make something move, which is pretty important. Here's the code to make the pen color constantly kind of go back and forth. There's a quick code to make the pen go up if you want to use that. This is how you do the pen size down here. What do we have over here? There's the whirl effect, you can see, by using the kind of pattern back and forth. And then here's all the stuff to reset the game back to normal at the start. This is how we always get it to start in the middle, go to 0, 0, clear away any drawings from before, pen size always goes back to 1, and the sprite's always pointing in the right direction so it never looks weird at the start. But that's the game. So thanks for watching the video, and bye.